Okay, hi, I'm Alex, 24M. And I swear I'm still shaking as I type this. You know how some family stories are funny in hindsight but absolutely soul-crushing when they happen? This is one of those. My dad, 52 years old, stubborn as hell, and the kind of guy who thinks he's smarter than everyone, just got catfished. Hard. And not by some random scammer in a basement halfway across the world. No, he got played by his own mother. My grandma. She's 78, knits sweaters like it's her job, and apparently has a revenge streak that could make a supervillain blush. Oh, and she did it on purpose. I saw it all go down, and I'm still not sure if I should laugh, cry, or move to another country to escape the fallout. It all hit the fan 3 days ago at this little coffee shop down the street from our house. Picture this, me and my mom sitting in a corner booth, sipping lattes and pretending we're not spying, while my dad, dressed in his fancy button-up that he only wears for dates or funerals, sits nervously at a table by the window. He's checking his phone every 5 seconds, grinning like a teenager with a crush. Why? Because he's about to meet Linda, this mystery woman he's been chatting with online for weeks. Spoiler: Linda doesn't exist. Linda is grandma, and dad has no idea what's coming. Let me rewind a bit, because you need to understand how we got here. My dad's always been a tech disaster. He's the guy who thinks the cloud is an actual fluffy thing in the sky, but he's also cocky about it. Like, he'll lecture you about internet safety, while clicking every sketchy pop-up ad that flashes across his screen. Grandma, on the other hand, is sharp. She's the kind of old lady who looks sweet as pie until you piss her off, and then suddenly you're wondering how you ended up with a knitting needle metaphorically lodged in your back. She's been obsessed with scammers ever since she binged some Netflix documentary about catfish schemes. She kept warning Dad, watch out for those fake profiles, they'll trick you blind. And Dad, he laughed in her face. Mom, he said, all smug, I'd never fall for that. Only idiots get catfished. Famous last words, right? That's when Grandma decided to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. She didn't just nag him or prove a point with a lecture. No, she went full psycho genius. She made a fake Facebook profile. Linda, 45F, divorced, loves long walks and deep talks, lives in the next town over. She even used some AI thing to generate photos. Honestly, I didn't know she was that tech-savvy, but I guess spite's a hell of a motivator. Then she sent Dad a friend request. And my dad, the self-proclaimed scam-proof genius, accepted it without a second thought. Within days, he was hooked. I'd catch him grinning at his phone over breakfast, typing away like a fool. Who's that? I'd ask, already knowing the answer because Grandma had spilled the whole plan to me and Mom over tea one afternoon. Oh, just a friend, he'd say, all casual, like he wasn't calling some stranger babe after a week. Grandma played it perfectly, kept it flirty but not too weird, just enough to keep him on the line. She'd text him stuff like, tell me about your day, handsome, and he'd ramble on about his boring office job like he was auditioning for a rom-com. Mom was torn. She'd giggle about it with me 1 minute, then mutter, this is going to end so badly, the next. Me. I was living for it. Every time Dad bragged about Linda being so real or so sweet, I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Grandma would wink at me across the dinner table, like we were in on the world's pettiest conspiracy. And then she started testing him. One night, Linda asked, would you ever lie to your family? Dad's reply, never, babe. I'm an honest guy. I nearly choked on my spaghetti. Honest. The guy who told me he forgot to pay the cable bill when he'd actually spent the money on a new fishing rod? Grandma just smirked when I told her that one. Oh, this is going to be good, she said, and I knew she was plotting something big. Fast forward to the coffee shop. Grandma had set the trap. Linda asked to meet in person. Dad, the absolute moron, said yes without hesitation. He spent an hour getting ready. Shaved, put on cologne, the works. Mom and I tagged along to watch the chaos unfold, pretending we were just grabbing a coffee. We got there early, staked out our spot, and waited. Dad showed up, all nervous energy, sipping his black coffee and checking the door every 2 seconds. I could see the gears turning in his head. This is it, I'm finally meeting her. Then the door swung open. In walked Grandma, 78 years old, 5 foot nothing, wearing her favorite floral cardigan and a grin that could cut glass. She marched straight up to his table, leaned in close, and said, loud enough for half the cafe to hear, "Hello, babe." The look on his face. I can't even describe it. Imagine every ounce of confidence, every shred of dignity, just whoosh, gone. His jaw dropped, his eyes bugged out, and I swear I saw his soul float out of his body and hover over the table for a split second. The whole place went quiet. People mid-sip, baristas mid-pour, everyone staring as my dad realized he'd been flirting with his own mother for weeks. Grandma didn't miss a beat. She sat down, grabbed his coffee, took a long sip, and said, "Only idiots get catfished, huh?" I thought he might pass out. Mom whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath, and I just sat there, torn between filming it for TikTok and pretending I didn't know them. Dad stammered something incoherent, pretty sure Mom was in there somewhere, but Grandma just leaned back in her chair, victorious. She'd won. She'd humiliated him in public, proved her point, and made it crystal clear who the real genius in the family was. But here's the thing, as we left the cafe, Dad still shell-shocked and me trying not to laugh. Grandma pulled me aside. "This isn't over," she whispered, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. "He's still got a lesson to learn." And now I'm sitting here, 3 days later, wondering what the hell she's planning next. Because if I know my grandma, this was just the warm-up. What do you think? Did Dad deserve this? Or is Grandma secretly a mastermind who's gone too far? I need to know, because I'm starting to think I'm next on her hit list. The ride home from the cafe was pure awkwardness. Dad staring out the window like a zombie, Mom sneaking worried glances, and Grandma up front, knitting and humming like she hadn't just torched his entire existence. I was still buzzing from the showdown, replaying her "hello, babe" in my head and trying not to laugh. But when we got home, Dad bolted to his garage man cave and didn't come out. Mom tried playing nice with a plate of leftovers, but he just growled, "Leave me alone, Jen." I figured he'd sulk it off by morning. Big mistake. Next day, I woke up to shouting, full-on war in the kitchen. Dad's waving his phone, screaming, "You think this is a game, Mom? You humiliated me in front of everyone." Grandma's pouring tea, cool as ever, and fires back, "If you'd listened, you wouldn't have been calling me babe like some desperate fool." I stopped halfway down the stairs, jaw dropped, because she was ruthless. Dad's face went beet red, and he slammed his phone down. "I'm done," he snapped. "Deleting it all. Facebook, everything. I'm out." I thought he was bluffing. He's obsessed with his online phishing rants. But then he grabbed his laptop and started hammering keys like it was personal. Mom tried to intervene, but he was feral. "I don't trust anything anymore," he yelled. I almost felt sorry for him. His pride was dust, and now he was rage-quitting the internet. But then Grandma caught my eye over her teacup and said, "He's still not getting it. Pride's a hell of a drug." Her tone was too calm, too loaded, and it stuck with me. What did she mean, still not getting it? She'd already won, crushed him in public. What else was there? That afternoon, Mom pulled me aside while I was scrolling on the couch. "Your dad's getting texts," she whispered, voice shaky. "From Linda." I laughed, thinking Grandma was twisting the knife, but then she showed me his phone. Messages from an unknown number. "Miss you, babe. Why'd you ghost me? You're breaking my heart, handsome." My stomach flipped. Dad had deleted Linda's profile after the cafe. I'd seen it gone myself. So who was this? "It's Grandma," I said, but Mom shook her head. "She's been at her knitting circle all day. I dropped her off." The texts were fresh, sent that hour. Maybe she had an accomplice, but it didn't feel right. Too clingy. Too weird. Later, I found Dad in the garage, slumped with a beer, looking wrecked. "What's with the texts?" I asked. He held up his cracked phone, barely glancing at me. "I don't know," he muttered. "I block one, another comes. Like she's pissed." His voice was dead, and when I joked, "Maybe Linda's clingy," he didn't crack a smile. "I don't think this is Mom anymore," he said, staring at nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Grandma's, he's still got a lesson to learn, kept rattling in my brain. What lesson? She'd already demolished him. Wasn't that enough? I was restless when Dad's phone started buzzing downstairs, over and over. I crept down and found him passed out on the couch, phone flashing. I grabbed it, and my heart stopped. Dozens of texts, all from different numbers. You can't ignore me. I'm still here, babe. You think this is over? I scrolled, palms sweaty, and then one hit like a punch. Look outside. Every instinct screamed don't, but Dad was stirring, groaning as he woke. What's wrong? He mumbled. I showed him the text, and he went stiff. What the hell is this? He whispered. We stumbled to the window, peering into the dark yard. Nothing, just shadows and the porch light's faint glow. It's fine, I said, mostly to myself, but Dad grabbed my arm. There, he hissed, pointing. I looked, and saw it. A figure, just past the light, standing too still. My chest tightened. Who's that? I choked, but before he could answer, the figure bolted, straight toward the house. Then the doorbell rang, loud and sharp, slicing through the silence like a blade. Guys, I'm freaking out. Is this still Grandma's game, or did she kick off something way worse? I need help figuring this out before whatever's at the door gets in. The doorbell's echo bounced through the house, and I swear my heart stopped mid-beat. Dad and I stood frozen by the window, staring at each other like deer in headlights. That shadow, it had moved so fast, like it knew we'd seen it. And now it was here, ringing the damn bell. Don't answer it, I whispered, but Dad was already shaking his head, gripping his cracked phone like a lifeline. We can't just stand here, he said, voice low and unsteady. The buzzing texts, the figure, the timing, it was too much. My mind raced. Grandma? A prank. Something worse. The bell rang again, insistent, and I felt the walls closing in. Dad took a step toward the door, and I grabbed his arm. Wait, what if it's not her? He looked at me, eyes wild, and rasped. What if it is? That hit harder than I expected. Grandma's cryptic lesson comment, her calm after the cafe. Could she really pull this off? Before I could argue, he yanked free and stumbled to the door, hands trembling as he fumbled with the lock. I held my breath, half expecting Linda to burst in with a fake wig and a cackle. The door creaked open, and there stood Grandma. She was in her floral cardigan, knitting bag slung over her shoulder, looking like she'd just strolled back from her knitting circle. What's with the faces? She said, brushing past Dad like it was nothing. Relief hit me like a wave. Then confusion. Grandma, what the hell? Were you just outside? She raised an eyebrow, setting her bag on the counter. I've been at Marge's all night. Your mom dropped me off. Didn't she tell you? Dad and I exchanged a look. Mom had said that, but the shadow, the texts, it didn't add up. Then who was? Dad started, but his phone buzzed again, cutting him off. He flinched, and I snatched it from him. Another message. You let her in? My stomach dropped. I shoved the screen in Grandma's face. Explain this. She squinted at it, then laughed, sharp and cold. Oh, he's still chasing ghosts, isn't he? She said, nodding at Dad. I told you, pride's a stubborn thing. She sounded amused, but her eyes had that glint again, the one that made me uneasy. Grandma, cut the cryptic crap, I snapped. Someone's texting him. Dozens of numbers, creepy stuff. And we just saw. I pointed out the window, but the yard was empty now, just the porch light flickering. She shrugged, pouring herself a glass of water. Sounds like he's got a fan. Maybe Linda made friends online. Dad exploded. This isn't funny, Mom. I'm getting threats. They know where we live. She didn't even blink, just sipped her water and said, You're the one who clicked on everything, dear. I only set the hook. You swam right into the net. That shut him up, but it didn't sit right with me. Grandma's catfish stunt was clever, sure, but this? Stalkery texts, a figure in the yard. It was next level. Did you give someone his number? I pressed. She smirked. I don't need to. The internet's a big place, Alex. You'd be surprised what swims up when you dangle bait. Her nonchalance was maddening, like she knew more but wasn't telling. Dad sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I deleted everything, he muttered. How is this happening? I was about to grill Grandma more when Mom stumbled downstairs, bleary-eyed. What's all the yelling? She asked, then saw Grandma. Oh, you're back. Wait, why's everyone freaking out? I filled her in, texts, shadow, doorbell, and her face went pale. I didn't drop her at Marge's, she said slowly. She told me she was staying home tonight. The room went dead silent. Grandma froze mid-sip, then set her glass down with a soft clink. Must have mixed up my days, she said, but her voice was off, too flat. Dad's head snapped up. You said Mom dropped you off. She waved a hand. I took a cab. Old brain, you know. But I wasn't buying it. Mom hadn't left the house all day. I'd been with her. And that shadow. It moved too fast for a 78-year-old, cab or not. Before I could call her out, Dad's phone lit up again. I grabbed it, and the message made my skin crawl. She's lying to you. I showed it to everyone, and Mom gasped. Grandma just chuckled. Creative, aren't they? She said, but her hands twitched, like she was nervous. Dad stood, voice shaking. Mom, what did you do? What did you start? She met his gaze, unflinching. I taught you a lesson. If it's grown legs, that's on you. The air felt thick, electric. I didn't know who to believe. Grandma's story was unraveling, but the texts, the figure, they were real. Too real. Then we heard it, a faint tapping, like fingernails on glass, coming from the back door. Everyone turned and Mom whispered, "What's that?" Dad grabbed a lamp like a weapon, and I edged toward the sound, dread pooling in my gut. The tapping got louder, faster, and then, silence. I peeked through the blinds and saw nothing but darkness. That's when the power cut out. The house plunged into black, and someone, Mom, I think, screamed. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, heart hammering, and swung it around. Dad was by the couch, Mom was clutching the wall, and Grandma, she was gone. Vanished. In the pitch dark, with something tapping at our door. The flashlight from my phone cut through the blackness, shaking in my hand as I swept it across the room. Dad's silhouette loomed by the couch, clutching that stupid lamp like it'd save him, and Mom was pressed against the wall, her breathing ragged. But Grandma, gone. Just gone. 1 second she'd been standing there, smirking like she owned the chaos, and now the spot by the counter was empty. The tapping at the back door had stopped, but the silence was worse. Thick, suffocating, like the house was holding its breath. Where'd she go? I croaked, my voice barely audible over the pounding in my ears. Mom whimpered. Alex, what's happening? Dad swung the lamp toward the kitchen. Mom, he shouted, but it echoed back unanswered. I took a step forward, light jittering across the floor, and that's when I saw it. A faint trail of water drops, leading from where Grandma had stood to the hallway. Her glass was still on the counter, half full. She didn't just vanish, I said, more to convince myself than them. She's here somewhere. But the power outage, the tapping, her disappearing act, it was piling up too fast, and my brain was screaming run. Dad bolted toward the hallway, lamp raised, and I followed, Mom stumbling behind. Mom, this isn't funny, he yelled, voice cracking. The beam caught the water trail snaking around the corner, toward the basement door. My stomach lurched. That door's always locked. Dad's paranoid about his fishing gear down there, but now it was cracked open, just enough to see the dark stairs descending. She couldn't have, Mom whispered, but I was already pushing past, shining my light down. The steps glistened, wet footprints, small and deliberate, heading into the black. Grandma! I called, hating how small I sounded. No answer, just a faint drip 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 from below. Dad shoved me aside, starting down. Stay here, he barked, but I wasn't letting him go alone. Not with whatever this was. Mom grabbed my arm, nails digging in. Don't, she pleaded, but I shook her off and followed, the cold air from the basement hitting me like a slap. The stairs creaked under Dad's weight, then mine, and every step felt like walking into a trap. At the bottom, the flashlight barely pierced the gloom. Boxes, old furniture, Dad's fishing rods glinting in the corner. The water trail stopped dead in the middle of the room, pooling around something small and shiny. I edged closer, heart in my throat, and picked it up. A knitting needle, one of Grandma's, still damp. "What the hell?" I muttered, showing it to Dad. His face went slack. "She was just upstairs," he said, like saying it would make it true. Then we heard it, a low, raspy chuckle, echoing from the shadows. We spun around, light slashing wildly, but the basement was empty. "Mom, stop screwing with us!" Dad shouted, but the laugh came again, closer, right behind us. I whipped the beam over my shoulder. Nothing. My skin prickled, every hair standing on end. "This isn't her," I whispered, and Dad's eyes met mine, wide with the same realization. Whatever was down here, it wasn't Grandma. Not anymore. The lights flickered back on, blinding us for a split second, and I blinked, disoriented. The basement looked normal again. Boxes, rods, no water, no needle. It was back in my hand, dry as bone. "What the—" I started, but Dad was already charging upstairs, yelling for Mom. I scrambled after him, and we found her in the kitchen, staring at her phone, face white. "It's her," she said, holding it out. "A text from Grandma's number. Check the garage." Dad didn't hesitate. He tore through the house, me and Mom trailing, and flung the garage door open. There she was, Grandma, sitting in Dad's recliner, knitting like it was Sunday afternoon. "Took you long enough," she said, not looking up. Dad lost it. "What are you doing? You were in the basement. How'd you get here?" She finally glanced at him, eyes sharp. "I've been here since the lights went out. You're the ones running around like fools." "Bullshit," I snapped, holding up the needle. This was downstairs, wet, with footprints. She tilted her head, smirking. "You're seeing things, Alex. Stress'll do that." But Mom cut in, voice trembling. "I got your text. Check the garage." "How'd you send it?" Grandma's smirk faded, just for a second. "I didn't," she said, pulling out her phone. The screen was dark. Dead battery. Been off all night. The air shifted, heavy and wrong. Dad's phone buzzed in his pocket, and he yanked it out, hands shaking. Another text, unknown number. "She's not the only one watching." My mouth went dry. "Grandma," I said slowly, "what did you do? Did you mess with something online? Something real?" She set her knitting down, meeting my gaze. "I made a point," she said. "If it's more than that, ask your father. He's the one who bit the bait." Dad's face crumpled. I deleted everything," he stammered, but his phone buzzed again. "Liar." Then mine did too. I looked down and my blood ran cold. "Look behind you." I didn't want to turn, but I did, slowly, and saw the garage window. A face pressed against the glass, pale and grinning, eyes locked on us. Then it was gone, like it had never been there. Mom screamed, Dad dropped his phone, and Grandma just picked up her knitting again, muttering, "Told you pride's a hell of a drug." The lights flickered once more, and something banged upstairs. Loud, deliberate, like footsteps. The front door slammed shut in our faces, wind howling through the cracks like a scream cut short. That hum, raspy, layered, chanting Linda, Linda, was everywhere now, vibrating in my skull. Mom was clawing at the doorknob, sobbing, "Let us out." Dad's hands shook as he gripped Grandma, demanding, "What did I bring here?" My phone buzzed again, no escape, and in the screen's reflection, that thing loomed behind me, grin wide and jagged. I spun around, but it was gone, flickering at the edge of sight, taunting us. The light strobed, footsteps thundered down the stairs, and I knew we were out of time. Grandma yanked free from Dad, her comm cracking. "Something hungry," she said, voice low. "You gave it away in." The kitchen mess, the trashed room, the texts. It wasn't her anymore. She'd baited him, sure, but Dad had bitten down hard, and now we were all caught in the jaws. "What did you do?" I shouted at him, dodging a flickering shadow that darted past. He crumpled, voice breaking. She, Linda, sent a link. Said it was a photo. I clicked it, downloaded something. I didn't think. You downloaded it? I yelled, pieces snapping together. Grandma's dark corners, some sketchy file from a fake profile. He'd let something in, something realer than any catfish. The hum spiked, words twisting. Mine, mine. Mom screamed as the lights died again, plunging us into black. I fumbled for my phone, flashlight shaking, and caught Grandma muttering, "Pride's a hell of a drug, like this was still her damn lesson. Fix this." Dad roared, but she shook her head. "It's past me now." Then the footsteps stopped, dead silence, and that figure materialized in the hallway, solid this time. Tall, blurry, eyes hollow but burning, grin stretching too wide. It didn't move, just stared, and I felt it pulling, like it was sucking the air out of me. Mom collapsed, gasping, and Dad lunged at it, fists swinging. He passed right through, crashing into the wall, and it laughed. Low, wet, echoing inside my head. Panic took over. I grabbed Mom, dragging her toward the garage. Anywhere but here. "We're not dying for your ego." I yelled at Dad, who was scrambling up, blood trickling from his nose. Grandma followed, slow but steady, like she was sizing it up. The thing flickered closer, whispering, "Linda's mine, you're mine." My phone buzzed, blank screen, just static, and I hurled it at the figure. It shattered midair, sparks flying, and the thing flinched, glitching like a bad signal. That's when Grandma moved. Fast. Too fast for 78. She snatched her knitting bag, pulled out a needle, and stabbed it into the floor, right where the shadow stood. The wood splintered, and the figure shrieked, a sound like breaking glass and drowning all at once. "You don't get them," she hissed, twisting the needle deeper. The lights flared back on, blinding, and the thing convulsed, shrinking, its grin warping into a snarl. Dad grabbed a chair and smashed it down, screaming, "Get out!" Mom clutched me, sobbing, and I just watched, stunned, as the figure flickered out. Gone, leaving a scorch mark where the needle stuck. The house went still. No hum, no texts, just our ragged breathing. Grandma yanked the needle free, wiping it on her cardigan like it was nothing. "Told you," she said, glaring at Dad. "You bite the bait, you deal with the catch." He sank to his knees, muttering, "I'm sorry," over and over. Mom hugged me, shaking, and I just stared at that scorch mark, trying to process what the hell we'd survived. Later, we found Dad's phone, cracked but alive. The Linda app he'd downloaded was gone, deleted like it had never existed. Grandma swore she didn't know it'd go this far, said she just trawled some shady forums for her stunt, never thought it'd summon. Whatever that was. A glitch with teeth, she called it, half smirking, like she was proud she'd outsmarted it. Dad's off tech for good now, won't even touch the TV remote. Mom keeps triple-checking the locks every night. Me. I'm still jumping at shadows, wondering if it's really over. Grandma's back to knitting, acting like it's all behind us. But last night I saw her stash that needle in a locked box, muttering something about, "just in case." And this morning, I found a scratch on my desk, new, faint, spelling L. I haven't told anyone yet. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe. So yeah, that's it. Grandma's revenge nearly killed us. Dad's an idiot. And I'm never clicking a link again. Was that thing real, or did we just lose our minds? You tell me, because I'm still not sure what I saw. That's it for today's story. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more wild Reddit stories. Until next time, stay curious and keep the stories coming.